guys. Want to welcome everyone to another edition of the New Jack Swing podcast with myself, Stevie Street, and Mr. Sheldon Taylor. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Good evening, and how would you like your New Jack Swing and a seasoning?
Okay. That's a different type of greeting, but it's different. It's good. Also, want to wish all the mothers out in North America. So for us, Mothering Sunday was just before Easter, but in the US they seem to have shifted the dates. So today in the US and North America it's Mothering Sunday. So we want to send out our love to all the mothers out there and wishing you a special day. Yes. Anyway, so Stevie, Sheldon, what are your thoughts about what's been happening? Anything that we should be gisting about or talking about?
Well, the first thing, obviously, is our special guest, hopefully in about half an hour's time. Mr. Idris Mohammed, hopefully coming through, talking about the ARB album. Let's hope he's next to us from 91.
Okay. That should be good. And anything else, Sheldon, that you think we can chat about?
I guess the DOA and the Babyface and Nita Baker situation.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I mean, let's start off with if that's the case. Let us start off with talking about DOA, Derek Aaron, and I'll be honest. I did know him from the College Girl because from the Bobby album, producing College Girl, my favorite album. But I was quite interested with his story, not just the other things he did, but just the whole relationship with Bobby Brown. What was your take from the interview? What did you find fascinating and enjoyable?
For me, it was his association with Troop. That was the thing that was amazing.
Okay.
Just him going on tour with them and just him seeing them from behind the scenes compared to what a fan would see in terms of how they did their thing. And then one thing was unique is that he said it was the best experience, even though he didn't get paid that much. That was the most unique, most fun experience that he had with them. So that says a lot. Mm-hmm.
So actually, I just see him popped up. We have a guest, Mr. Idris Mohammed has joined us. So it might be rude to leave him out. So I'm going to invite him in, and so he can be part of what we're doing. So we can. So want to welcome everybody. We're going to welcome everyone, Mr. Idris Mohammed.
What's up, man?
Yes, well, welcome. Really glad that you can join us.
Yeah, what's going on? I heard my boys, the Black, were on about a couple of months ago, and then Mucho was on about a couple of years ago. So I'm glad to be here, man.
Yes. Definitely Mucho, Sprague, Spec, KB, Sean. Yeah, so they're all they're part of our family. So yeah, they've been down with us since day one.
Yeah.
And so we do have we're going for our top 10 favorite R&B tracks.
Okay.
And I didn't want to spoil it, but because you're here, None But a Party is my all-time favorite New Jack Swing track.
Okay, because I was on Nothing But a Party.
Well, I know that. Yeah, so I mean,
okay.
So I didn't want to spoil it, but because he's here, I couldn't just let that slide to let you guys know. But I'm still gonna I still have my other 9 to go through. But yeah, definitely welcome. We're definitely honored that you can join us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But look, I think I jumped in the middle of my brother talking, so I'm just going to sit here and just relax until you get to me, okay? So go ahead, keep it popping.
Yeah. So because what we're doing is we were reflecting on DOA Allen.
Okay. Oh,
Derek
yeah, absolutely.
DOA Allen. So we had an interview with him, and we just wanted to reflect on our thoughts about what we learned and what we picked up from it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I was just saying, as far as him just being on the road with them. and the experiences that he had. That was very eye-opening for me. And in a climate where, you know, compensation is really a big thing, that environment that he was in, he didn't get paid a lot, but evidently he came away from that with so many different great experiences. And then just him having that insight on being that fly on the wall, seeing them do their thing in their prime like that, that was really good.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at the reflection between New Edition today and how to a Troop are now, I think there's a lot of people who forget how awesome Troop were, and I keep telling people, because during the time Troop were out, I was still in Nigeria, and to us, Troop were a band who were dancers who could sing. I mean, that's how we saw them. We were just floored by that. So for him, being a musician on tour with them, to just see them working hard, that was really important to reflect on. I mean, Idris, what are your thoughts of Troop and what they back in the day?
I think Troop were very underrated, unfortunately. I think they were phenomenal singers and phenomenal dancers. Troop choreographed all of their material and their dance material. So I think that they were phenomenal. And I think that the remake they did of All I Do Is Think of You by the Jacksons was, you know, second to none. I mean, no one could have done it better. And I definitely think that they were underrated as a group in a whole. They had excellent harmonies. I forget what the younger guy's name was. I think it was John. Was it?
Yeah, John.
Right. The younger guy that had he had the deep voice, sort of like a Johnny Gill kind of sound. He was amazing, but in all, I think Troop was a great group.
Yeah. Stevie.
I mean, I don't want to spoil the whole interview for any of it. Yeah, but I just felt, I was watching your reactions. The whole interview was like a movie. It started off, you just getting into it slow, and then after about 20 minutes, it just takes off. It's like a crescendo of drama and stories, and it just, the way he just drops his stories, I was just blown away, absolutely blown away by the whole interview. Obviously, the demos, the song he'd wrote for Bobby Brown, the couple of tracks that he'd wrote, and it turns out that one of the tracks never came out, featuring Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
And when he actually played the track for Bobby in his car,
okay.
just blew me away. You know, just watching your reaction as well. You know, you're finding all this out for the first time. We're finding it all out 30 years on, which is incredible. So, yeah. Because I remember seeing his name on CD credits, and I always thought, who is this guy, DOA? And once I started seeing his name on the credits, I bought it up as well, because that's how I ended up building my collection up, just through seeing credits and names on New Jack Swing albums. And I thought, I never saw a picture of this guy. I just thought, this guy is really solid, you know. This Derek guy. Great interview, fantastic interview.
You know, that happened a lot back in the days. Like a lot of the bigger producers would, because they were making so many hits at the time, they would get producers to be on production teams. And what would happen was, no matter who created the sound or the record, that big producer would get the credit. So like I was down with the Teddy Riley camp. So I got into the game from David Wynn. I started off with David Wynn. I was like 17 years old. And so David Wynn, before he met Teddy, he did a song on Rob Bass's album. What's the one with Get on the Dance Floor? He did that song. And then he went and started working with Teddy. And what people don't know is that David Wynn produced Rum Shaker. People don't know that because Teddy got the credit. And he got the credit because obviously he was Teddy Riley. And then, and then Mucho produced Roughneck, and Mucho produced the Human Nature remix. He also produced My Love for Mary J. Blige. So all of these things, there were production camps, and what would happen would be that, you know, the harder produced, the hottest producer that had these camps would just take the credit. And sometimes, you know, they would get, you know, some money. I mean, they would get money, but it wouldn't be substantial enough as the producer, like, you know, like, so for instance, Bernard Bell wrote Remember the Time, or helped write Remember the Time, just like he wrote Kissing Game. And, you know, those things, you know, he doesn't necessarily get the credit he should have gotten, you know. So that used to happen a lot back in the days, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much we're going to, when we get into your career and your group, and being in the midst of the whole New Jack Swing revolution and things. But I just finally, Sheldon, anything else that you picked up from DOA before we interview our special guest?
That was the thing that stood out. But again, like Stevie said, as far as just having those great stories, because sometimes some people, as the time goes on, they forget a lot of stuff. They forget a lot of stuff. So for him to really just have that recall, it makes for a great, you know, interview, and makes you want to go back and listen to it again.
I'll check out his YouTube channel as well. He's got the playlist, and there's some recent footage of a Chucky Booker concert that he did. I think it was just before Christmas. You need to watch that. It's edited, but just to see Chucky Booker live is just
amazing.
He's still got the voice. So yeah, check out Derek's YouTube channel, the playlist.
Yes, DOA. Yeah, so he and Chucky are best friends, and Chucky formed University Part 2.
Right.
So Derek plays the bass, so they're always playing stuff together. Chucky's came to the UK with Lionel Richie, so he went. You know, he was the music director with Lionel Richie and the Rhythm Nation tour buddies. So when Lionel Richie came to the UK to play at the King's coronation party, Chucky flew out there. But they always didn't. Yeah, he's like, no, I'm not. You know, he wanted him on bass, but he's like, no, I'm not traveling right now. But the one thing I would always say, I probably interviewed over 100 guests, and it isn't the size of isn't the name of the guest that makes the interview. It's actually the personality. Yeah. And one of the things about DOA is that he was an amazing storyteller. The way he just got into it, and so people who didn't really know him were falling in love with how he was just telling a story and going back, and he was being visualizing everything. And because when he talked about Bobby saying bringing in Whitney Houston, and he was like, produce, and he was like, I don't know what to do, and you could just feel, I almost, if this was a TV movie, I could just visualize the whole thing. So that's the one thing that you can get, is a great guest who can. I can't say the names of some of my big guests who were really sort of hard to bring out their personality and really made the interview quite a challenge. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, no pressure on no pressure at all. You know?
Yeah. Well, we can go in and start off with you, Idris. I mean, you know, for those, because, you know, we do have an international audience, so we always like to start off with, to know where you're sort of born and raised, so people have an idea.
Okay. So I was born in New York, Manhattan, actually. And both of my parents were in the music industry. A lot of people don't know that. Both of my parents, my dad was a famous jazz drummer, Idris Muhammad Sr. And my mom, and yeah, and and then my mom, and so my mom was the lead singer of a group in the '60s called the Crystals. So her hit song was "The Do Run Run Run." To do run, you know? And so, so I was kind of like born in the music industry. Miles Davis was my godfather. So we would have, my dad would have, and so I was born in New York, and then we moved to Teaneck, New Jersey. And so the great thing about Teaneck, New Jersey is it's next to two other cities. One is Inglewood and one is Hackensack. And Inglewood and Hackensack, especially Inglewood. So if you know Teaneck, that's Isley Brother country. Isley Brothers
Ah.
come from the Teaneck, New Jersey. Where Inglewood, you have Today, the group Today, you have Redhead Kingpin, and then you have the outskirts of Inglewood, you have Alpine and Closter. Now in Alpine, you have Stevie Wonder. In Inglewood, you have Sugar Hill Records. In Inglewood, you have Regina Bell and Bernard Bell. And so at the time, I'm talking about mid 80s, where, you know, all hip hop and things of that nature used to come from New York. And so people used to sleep. And it's so ironic is because even though the hip hop used to come from New York, Sugar Hill Records was the first record label to put out an album, and they're from Jersey. They're Jersey, right? And so Inglewood is the next town from Teaneck. Inglewood was a little bit rougher. So Redhead Kingpin was my childhood friend.
Wow.
And
David Guppy.
David, we used to call him David Guppy, the redhead puppy. That's what we would call him. And so he was about 2 years younger than I was. David Redhead was his mother was a police officer. I think she made it to police chief or something like that in Inglewood.
Wow.
But so I started off with David Wynn. David Wynn, whose name at the time was DJ Sky, had like, I think if my memory serves me correctly, 4 or 5 brothers that they all used to rap, but they were rapping in the time of like Grandmaster Flash and those. So they were his older brothers. And so I was younger at the time, and at the time I had made a name as a rap. So let me rewind. So I wanted to get into the music industry, and my parents didn't want me to because they said it wasn't stable. So what they did is they said, you know, if you get your education, you go to school, you get your degree and whatever, you can get into the music industry. And like living in Teaneck, New Jersey, you never know. It's like, well, you say it's not stable, but I never wanted for anything. Teaneck is a great place to live. It's in Bergen County, which is the richest state in New Jersey. So I'm like, okay. So ironically, my parents sent me to school in England. So I went to school in England. I actually went to school in Bury.
There's place,
right
away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
I went to school. I went to school in Bury. It was I'm Muslim, so it was a Muslim school.
What year was that? What year?
It was in like the early 80s, sort of like 83, 82, 83, something like that. Yeah. And so I went there for like 4 years. I would come home every summer and got my degree after, back then you had to take your O levels and A levels, right? Yeah. And so then I get back home from school and I say, okay, Dad, I want to dive into the music industry. He's like, okay. At that time, my dad was playing for Roberta Flack. So my dad, he was playing for Roberta Flack. So my dad started off playing for Sam Cooke. And then he went to the Impressions, Curtis Mayfield. Then after that, he was playing for James Brown. But that's his story. Anyway, I get back from England and I say I want to dive into the music industry. And he says, okay. So I'd start rapping and things of that nature. And I, at the time, and nobody can refute this, at the time, Inglewood, Hackensack, and Teaneck would always have these parties. I was the baddest, the coldest MC in all 3 cities, the coldest. And so David Wynn saw me battling Biz Markie one day in Teaneck, New Jersey. Yeah. And it was Biz Markie and TJ Swan. And I had a beatbox at the time. His name was Dion Perkins. And I killed him. And so David Wynn, I'm about 3 years younger than David Wynn. David calls me. He's like, yo, dude, I'm getting this group together, and it was me, him, and another rapper named MC Norm, and so we made a group called The Move, and so we had like one song out. It's on YouTube, and then after that, now all this time, David is like 2 years younger than me, and he's like following me all around, and we're good friends, and like so when you're 2 years younger, 2 or 3 years younger, it seems like you're 5 years younger. You know what I mean? Because you get what I'm saying, at like 15, 17. And so he would always follow me around, and he hadn't kind of like grown into his I would say his style yet. And he would follow me around and things of that nature. The next thing you know, he gets a deal with Gene. And so let me rewind it back. So Big Bub is part of Today. So Today was signed to Gene.
Yeah.
But Today had a group called the Gents before they signed with Gene. And in that group, Bernard Bell was in that group. And so Gene, if my memory served me correctly, gave them the name Today, is because I think he said that, you know, that name never goes out of style. It's always Today, right? If I got the story wrong, please forgive me. But so they got signed first to Gene. And then I think Redhead got signed to Gene. And so when Redhead got signed, I would hang with Red. And at the time, Rex and Effect had put out a first album. And then I think B-Dogs got killed. And on that first album, Scoop Lover, who is now Fat Man Scoop now.
He did say he was with
back
in the day.
Fat Man Scoop. His name was Scoop Lover, and he was on like a single, a song on Rex and Effect's first album. And so I got on. So if it wasn't for Redhead, I probably wouldn't have gotten to the business that heavy. And so it was between Redhead and another man named T.C. Tompkins. You have to look him up. T.C. Tompkins had two daughters, and his two daughters was Rochelle and Michelle, and they lived in Teaneck. And T.C. Tompkins was the vice president, I think, of marketing for Epic at the time. And I swear, T.C. Tompkins had Michael Jackson at his house. Wow. Because Michael was signed to Epic, right? and so like Michelle and Rochelle, which are his daughters, they would be like, well, Michael Jackson was at our house, and we'd be like, yeah, right. You know, we'd be like, yeah, right. I mean, this is Michael Jackson off the wall, Michael Jackson, and this is Michael Jackson Thriller, Michael Jackson. And so T.C. Tompkins, Michelle and her sister, mostly Michelle, them and Redhead got me down with Gene. And when I got on board, it was almost the beginning of the breakup between Gene and Teddy. And that's a completely different story. I mean, and so what would happen was Teddy, when Redhead was like, because I had already signed, and Redhead was like, yo, bro, you know, Gene and Teddy are splitting up. And he was like, I don't know if I'm going to go with Gene. And I'm like, well, I've already signed. And he was like, all right. And so then we have moved. Gene was moving to Atlanta at the time. And Teddy was supposed to move to Atlanta. And so was Gene had bought Teddy and Damien a house. And it was in Virginia. And they were going to move to Virginia first, but then they moved to Atlanta. And next thing you know, it was around the holiday season. They were breaking up. The whole GR Productions were breaking up. So like, that's how I knew Spec and them, because Spec and Mucho and KB were the backup band for Today. And Daryl Diesel was a drum tech for Guy. And so this is the thing that Gene would do. This is the kind of stuff Gene would do. If Gene would find and see an artist that was amazing, he would sign you and put you on the shelf, right? And so what Gene did with Diesel is, okay, Diesel had a group with a guy named Dinky and Aaron Hall. They were in a group before.
Hold on. Stop there. We're only just finding this information out, that there was a group with Aaron Hall, Dinky Bingham, and Diesel. So this, yeah.
They would sing together. Those three would sing together, right? And I think Diesel used to say Aaron was his cousin, and Aaron would say Diesel was his cousin. But I don't know if they're fully related, but that's what they would say. So Dinky, Aaron, and Diesel would sing in church together, and they formed a group. I don't think that they were recorded or anything like that, but they sing together. And at the time, Teddy had Men at Work, and this is around the time of the show, around Dougie Fresh. And so when Timmy Gatlin left, I don't want to say left, when he wasn't in Guy anymore, let me clear that up because I know he didn't leave. When he wasn't in Guy anymore, they got Damien, and Damien was down with Guy, and then Gene signed Diesel because Diesel sounded a lot like Aaron. So Gene signed Diesel so he wouldn't mess with Aaron. And so Diesel, he signed him and he put him as a drum tech. So wherever Guy went, Diesel was the drum tech. And so that's how, so then when the breakup between Teddy and Gene happened, then Gene had Diesel signed. Because see, Diesel was a solo artist, and so was I. I was signed as a solo artist. And so the funny thing Gene would do is he would, whoever he had at the time, sometimes he would put them together. You get what I mean? So Diesel was a solo artist. I was a solo artist signed as a solo artist. When the breakup came about, Gene took Basic Black and they were down in Atlanta, and Gene had put Diesel with Basic Black, and that's how Basic Black came about. But they already had the name. They had the name like years before. It was KB, Spec, and Mucho, and then they had like a girl singer. Her name was Lucretia. She's actually a doctor right now.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm getting mixed up with Letitia.
No, Lucretia. No, not Letitia. Letitia was a girl that Gene produced. That's a completely she was someone signed to Motown when we were on Motown. They just produced her, but no, this girl's name was Lucretia, and she was Asian. I think she was Korean. If she wasn't Korean, may God forgive me, but I think she was Asian, and she played keyboards. And when the Black came up, they were the backup band for Today, and Lucretia was going to be the lead singer. And then they found Diesel, and then Lucretia wasn't the lead singer anymore. She went back down to Columbus, and she's doing well for herself now. I think she's a doctor. So that's how the Black formed down there. And so when the breakup started, I went to Atlanta, and Redhead stayed and went solo. And see, what people fail to realize, and I don't think anybody will dispute me when I say this, when Gene left Teddy, or when Teddy left Gene, let's make that clear. When Teddy left Gene, Gene started losing all of his deals. Okay, so there was a guy named Artie Hoyle, Timmy Arthur. His name is Timmy Arthur. He was signed to Virgin. And then Zan the Man was signed to Warner Brothers.
Hold on, Timmy Arthur was signed to Virgin.
Yes.
As a solo artist.
We're
getting some gems today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Timmy Arthur was signed to Virgin as a solo artist. He had his album. His album was done.
Oh my gosh.
So he was signed.
Who produced it? Him? Because
no, Timmy Arthur produces Timmy Arthur, and okay, so you'd have to, you got to get in contact with Timmy, because when I say Timmy Arthur and when I say Artie Hoyle, it's the same guy. Okay. Right. So Artie Hoyle is the guy with me on that album. That's the same guy. And so Timmy Arthur produced his own album. He had help from Zan. Timmy Arthur's album was done. When I went to Atlanta in 90, I remember this clearly. Okay, so I got picked up at Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta, and Gene picks me up in this 750 BMW. I think it was the black one. He picks me up, and I'm in the front seat, and he puts a tape in, and I hear this song called "I've Been Waiting," and it's by Timmy Arthur, but Diesel is on it, and I'm like, I said, that's Aaron. I said, that's Aaron. And he says, no, that ain't Aaron. I said, who's that? And he said, that's Diesel. I said, you joking. I said, he sounds just like Aaron. And he said, yep. And I said, holy shit. That's what I said. I was like, so Timmy Arthur, I hope he still has them. He has a song with Diesel. The song is called I've Been Waiting, but Timmy Arthur's singing all the lead and Diesel's just doing like ad libs.
Oh, this is crazy stuff.
It's crazy, right? And so yeah, Timmy's album was finished. He was on Virgin. So what happened was Gene was losing all his deals. When Teddy left Gene, he was losing his deals. So when Teddy left Gene, Warner Brothers stopped promoting Zan. He stopped promoting Zan.
Now I understand what happened with. I was going to get onto Zan because we need to find this guy.
Right.
We need to find Redhead Kingpin and Zan.
Redhead is in Las Vegas. I spoke to him some years ago, but I haven't spoken to him. The last time I tried to text Red, because I always mention his name, always. The last time I tried to text Red is when Eminem won. He got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and he mentioned Redhead as one of his inspirations. And so when he mentioned his Redhead Kingpin, I text Red. I was like, "Yo, Eminem just mentioned you as an inspiration, bro." And but he never texted me back. So I don't know where Red is. Last time I heard, he was in Las Vegas.
Now, I'm sorry, real quick, because you mentioned Zan.
Yeah.
Now, and I was looking at the credits on your album, and there's an M.A. card.
That's
no,
Zan.
Zan's last name is A card.
That's
okay,
Zan.
got it.
That's Zan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Zan.
Right.
And so Zan. Okay, so Zan used to date a girl that was an Abstract. Her name was Wanda, right?
More gems.
If you look at the first Groove, if you look at the Groove Me video, there's 3 girls in a row, and they're just doing their hands like this, Groove Me, that. Yeah, that is Abstract.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
That's Abstract, but I think I don't know, why she left the group or whatever, but that was one of the it was her and another girl, pretty girl,
Marsha and Mary.
Yeah, one of them, I think it was Marsha's the one that gave Teddy a credit card when Gene left him. One of them, when he left Gene. Yeah.
Marsha.
All right, so yeah, it was Wanda was one, and Marsha, and the other one was Abstract. Yeah, and so Wanda was Zan's girlfriend. So Gene we used to when everybody got signed, we got brought down to Atlanta, and we all stayed in a house in Duluth, Georgia. It was me, the Black, Zan, Spragg, and Timmy Arthur. And when I say the Black, I mean Spec KB, Mucho, and Diesel. We stayed in Duluth, Georgia, and I never forget. We stayed in this very rich cul-de-sac where they had a basketball thing at the end. It was like a dead end. And brothers, we playing basketball all day. And so we go to the studio, and then we play basketball by the day and go to studio at night. And so at the time in Duluth, Georgia, you talk about 90s, there was nothing but white people there. So they kind of like got us kicked out they got us kicked out the subdivision. And so Gene was like, so y'all MFs want to stay up all night? Because that's how Gene talked. He was like, y'all MFs want to stay up all night? And y'all want to play all night? All right, so I'm gonna move y'all where you can play music loud. So he moved us down to Camp Creek, where there was nothing but brothers and sisters, and it was the ghetto, and we could play our music as much as we want. We could produce, and we wouldn't have problems. Yeah. So we moved from there to there, and so again, I still was a solo artist, and so the Black came out. I did some writing on theirs, and then we came out. And then what Gene did is, because Artie lost his deal, he put Artie with me, and then there was this girl named Coco who was a rapper. She was signed as a solo artist. Then he put her, and it was me, Artie, and Coco. And then he made the name Atlanta Rap Band. Because when he said the name, I was like, this is the wackest. This is horrible. And he made the name, and that's how it came about. So he put us all together.
Already. I'm absolutely, blown away by all this already. What I'm hearing, incredible. Because I remember buying the album. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a sunny morning. Back then, I had $20 a week to spend.
Okay.
As a late teen, early 20s, I'd get on the train to my city to like a record store that imported like soul and black music.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going in the store, and the guys knew I was into New Jack Swing. And the minute they saw me, Steve, we got this for you. And they put the Arb album in my hand. And I looked to the cover, flipped it over, and I'd already got the Basic Black album.
Right.
So instantly it said like featured Diesel,
Mm-hmm.
produced by Gene Griffin. I didn't even need to listen to it. I just went, right, I'm having that straight away.
Right.
And, it was always a mystery to me, to be quite honest. You were, I know you did one video from the
and I think Coco still has that video. I've been trying to find that video on YouTube, but I can't find it.
Listen, there's a 3-second clip of it on a Gene Griffin. I'll send you the link on a Gene Griffin.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah. But Coco has it. Coco, she has it. She has like an original. So I have to get it from her. But yeah, so that is the story of us and so what's so funny is that when the album first came out, everybody was bad blood. Gene and we had found out that he was stealing money and things of that. See, so this is what Gene did. We were signed to Sounds of New York, right? But Sounds of New York was signed to Motown. And so it was a production deal that was signed plus a publishing deal. So Gene owned 75% of our publishing. So that if you look at every single Black album, if you look at only one Black album, but if you look at every Teddy album or the First Guy album, it'll have Gene as a writer.
Yeah. Producer and writer.
If you look on ARB, it'll have him as a writer. Gene didn't write anything on how's he gonna write raps for me? You know what I'm saying? And so Gene didn't write anything, but he puts himself as a writer because we had signed a publishing deal, and the publishing deal was 75% of our publishing. Wow. And so that's the reason why. When they made the New Edition movie, they have to get permission from Donna, who's Gene's wife, because he owns the rights to My Prerogative. You get what I'm saying? And since he's passed away, it goes to his wife. She has sold everything. So whatever Gene did, if you look at the Guy albums, it's his name on there. If you look at Zan's album, it's his name on there.
Yeah. If we go back slightly, one would think that your dad was in the music business, your mom was in the business, your godfather's Miles Davis. Mm-hmm. They should have, you've got to education 101 about the industry, like, so you'd know about. So people would assume that would be easy access to get into any label, anything, because you've got the connections. But two, you've got people who could tell you about, publishing and all that stuff. Or what was the case for yourself?
Okay, so I pride myself on being truthful. So my father couldn't read. My father was illiterate. My father couldn't read or write. But my father was a musical genius, and I didn't find out my father could read until I was 13 years old. My mother pushed education, but my father, from New Orleans, he couldn't read. And so I found out that my father couldn't read when I was 13. We lived in this big house in Teaneck, New Jersey, and it was like 3 stories. And what my dad would do would be when he would get his record dates and his recording dates, he would have one of us write down the information. So I think I just came from school from England, and it was there for the summer. And my dad said, Drise, and I come down. He's like, I want you to write this down for me. So I would, this particular time, I wrote the address down for him, and I was on my way back upstairs, and my mom, I'm huffing and puffing because I'm 13, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What's wrong with Daddy? He's always telling us to write stuff down for him. What's wrong? He can't read or something?" And my mother says, "No, your father can't read." So I was like, "What?" And so then I started asking questions. I was like, well, how did he get his license? And my mother said, well, my brother, which is my uncle, her brother, which is my uncle, him and my dad are the same age. So my uncle James got him his license, because back then, driver's license pictures weren't on driver's licenses. So my uncle James got him his license. So then I would say to her, I was like, well, how do you guys, like, how do we have all this? And how do you guys like read when you're in a restaurant with other people? My mom said, she said, well, I get the menu and I read it down. I'm like, my mom would be like, you know, oh, they have meatballs. Oh no, maybe I'll get the shrimp. Oh, moment. And so my dad would know what's on the menu. And so, but my dad was a genius, because my father was, he was my mom and dad were in the Broadway play Hair in 1969. And he knew music, it's just that he couldn't read. And so I say that to say this, because back then you have to understand sampling and things of that nature. They hadn't made the laws on sampling at that time. You talk about the early 80s, you know what I mean? And so people were getting away with sampling. So many people have sampled my dad, and he never got paid for it. Now, as far as my mom is concerned, because I was born and raised Muslim, my mom got out of the business when I was 5, and she just raised us. And my dad stayed in the music industry. And so he wasn't savvy. He wasn't music business savvy. And one thing about that genre, and this is why I always say there's no such thing as selling out as it pertains to Black music. Because when my dad was playing jazz wasn't popular. And what I mean by that is that the artists at the time weren't getting paid that much. Where now most of the jazz artists are white, and now they get paid top dollar. So when my dad was playing, my dad's friends were the likes of Dizzy Gillespie, Herbie Hancock, and things of that nature. And I remember Herbie Hancock, because my mom and my dad, I remember this argument between my parents, because my Herbie Hancock was like, you know, you need to get into this new wave kind of stuff. And what he meant by new wave is hip hop, because they really did. There really wasn't a word for it at the time, you know? And so, you know, Herbie Hancock is doing Rocket, you know, all of that breakdance and stuff. And my dad is like, that's a sellout. And so a lot of artists at that time felt that being mainstream, if you played jazz, you were selling out. And that's how my dad was. So to answer your question, when I got into the industry, because he wasn't that savvy, he can't tell me about contracts. You get what I'm saying? And my mom is out the business, but he can't tell me about this is what you need and this is what, you know what I mean? Because George Benson used to live in Inglewood. George Benson lived in Inglewood Cliffs. Eddie Murphy lived in Inglewood Cliffs, Bubble Hill. Wilson Pickett. I had a situation with Wilson Pickett's son where I walked in his house and beat his behind. Wilson Pickett lived in Inglewood Cliffs. All of these people lived in Inglewood. Whitney Houston lived in Inglewood Cliffs. And all of these people, we were all around all of these people. But when it came for me signing the contract, you know, you're young, you're 17, 18 years old. You just want to get into business. And mind you, you're signing with Gene Griffin and Teddy Riley, who changed music, period. I mean, they changed the industry. I mean, everything before them was SOS Band and Freddie Jackson. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they completely changed the music industry. So it's like, I was like, I just jumped for it. And, you know, at the end of the day, you live and you learn.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned, I remember listening to an interview with Ray Parker Jr., and he was good friends with Herbie Hancock. And he said how, you know, jazz musicians, you know, were very reluctant to cross the other side.
Right.
They were really proud about their stuff.
Right.
But Ray realized, look, man, the money, you know,
right.
you could dibble back and forth and stuff. So I can imagine and understand when you mentioned that, I can imagine what your dad was saying.
Right.
But then at the time, so, you know, when even now, if anyone says they sent their kids to England to go to school, you know, people would think, wow, there must be a lot of money around just to, you know, to do that. Most Americans were hardly leaving their state, not to talk of moving country to send their kids to school.
Right. Right.
So was your dad, at least regardless of the business side, he was still able to be?
We were well off. We did well. The only thing is that you know how they always say that if you're making $1 million, that means the other person is making like 5.
A Don King kind of thing. Okay.
You know what I mean? And so I mean, we were doing well, but other people were doing better. And when my parents sent me to school in England, they sent me to a Muslim school,
Okay.
and so then I got out of that Muslim school and went to regular school, but it was a religious school they sent me to at first, and so. Yeah, and so because my parents did a lot of traveling in England. See, my mom was signed as Phil Spector. So
Well, okay.
yeah, Phil Spector. So she wasn't Motown, she was Phil Spector. So Phil Spector, she had a lot of white fans. So the Crystals, they had a lot of white fans. And so they toured England a lot, the Crystals, and my dad toured Europe a lot because of jazz. And so they were very familiar with Europe. As a matter of fact, now both of my sisters are married to people from Europe.
Wow.
One of them passed away, but so my family, my brother and I went to school in England, and then my 2 sisters went to school in Vienna, Austria. So my brother and I speak fluent. My brother and I speak fluent Urdu, Gujarati, and Hindi, and then my sisters speak fluent German.
Wow.
Because in England, as you know, there are a lot of Indians and Pakistanis.
Yeah.
And so we learned the language. And so then when my parents moved to Austria, my sisters, they speak fluent German. And so my parents knew England. My parents knew Europe very well.
Sheldon, what do you know about his dad?
Well, his father is a great drummer, and his mother, with the Crystals. I watched a interview with your mom, Streetlight. Excellent interview.
Okay.
Excellent. She shared a lot of great stories, a lot of insight during the time when it was a lot of heavy racial stuff going on, and she was one of the few people in that time who was actually just really standing up against that movement at the time. So yeah, very great interview.
Yeah, my mom, which is very ironic, is because Dionne Warwick has something out now where she tells a story, but she tells it wrong. It was actually my mom's story. What happened was it was Dionne, and so from my mom being from Brooklyn, she never really knew about racism like the racism in the South. Okay, and so my mom, I think, was about 13 or 14. And Dionne Warwick was older than her, and so my mom said that they were touring with Sam Cooke, and Dionne and my mom went to a store to get a tuna fish sandwich, and so when they went to get a tuna fish sandwich, the waitress lady said, "Y'all can't eat here, y'all can't eat here." And my mom, being from Brooklyn, she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Here, take the menu, go outside, and come back and tell us what you want." When she said take the menu, she threw the menu at my mom, and my mom threw the menu back at her. When she threw the menu back at her, the menu hit the white lady on the chin. Dionne Warwick grabs my mom and runs. Wow. And they run back to the sound check where Sam Cooke is doing the sound check. And he says, they tell my mom tells Dionne, Dionne tells my mom, Dionne and my mom tells Sam hides him under the stage. And then next thing you know, this big, this cop comes to the venue and says, where that little nigger gal at? And Sam is like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, where's that little nigger gal at? And he says, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, okay, I'll tell you what. As soon as you finish the show, get out of town, go to the next town. And so that night, my mother said that Sam Cooke, because he was so upset, that night he started back then they had a line in between the black people and the white people. He said that night, my mom said that night, Sam Cooke started just singing to the black side. and the white side were mad and started throwing stuff at him. And then when they left that night, Sam Cooke said to my mom, who's much younger, he said, you know why I did that? He said, I did that is because of the way that they treat us. And so, my mom I asked mom, I got books and things that my mom tells me about the 60s. My dad told me a story where he was in the South with Joe Jones or somebody like that. And he said they pulled over to go get some gas. And back then, they got their gas pumped. Someone pumped their gas for them. Mm-hmm. So he said one of his friends went to go drink some water, and the guy that pumps the gas says, "Hey, you don't drink that water. It's not good for you." And the guy's like, he said it'll give you a headache. And the guy's like, "How's this water going to give me a headache?" He said, "Don't drink that. I'm telling you, it'll give you a headache." And he says, "Oh, whatever." And he goes and drinks the water. The white parking attendant hits him on the head with a hammer. Light. He hit him light, but he hit him. He hits him and he says, "I told you that water will give you a headache. Don't drink that damn water." And so, like, those are stories. I mean, my dad tells me stories about Little Richard and things like that. And it's just amazing stories that I've learned from both my parents. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you're right. She does. She's paved the way for a lot of us, a lot of our artists now. You know what I mean? The things that they went through has paved the way for a lot of the artists now. I mean, we see racism here and nowadays, and it's just, I'm not saying it's just as bad, but they paved the way for a lot of us. So we need to be very, very, very grateful for all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what they experienced in the 60s and stuff, but then when you think about what Black artists were experiencing in the late 80s and the 90s with the likes of a Gene Griffin, a Suge Knight, what's the guy out in Solar Records, Dick Griffey?
Dick Griffey.
Yeah. Where, and so then you start realizing that actually, was it any better? Where you'd get into the business, and they're taking 75% of your hard work. I mean, for but for yourself, was it always been a hip hop? You weren't a musician. You weren't singing. Was it just hip hop?
No. I play also. I play drums. But it's always been. I've always been a writer. A lot of times when people start off rapping, they end up writing songs, and so I've always been into writing and things of that nature. And a lot of the reasons why I was into writing is because when I found out that my father couldn't read, growing up, I suffer from dyslexia. And so, so what would happen with me is I would see words backwards. Right. Wow. And so the only way to get over things like that is if you attack your fears. And so I started writing to attack my fear, because I suffer from dyslexia. And so it's more so writing and things of that nature. And one thing about my dad is I learned how to play the drums on my own. My dad wouldn't teach me because he didn't want me to get into the business, and a lot of times you want to be what your parents are. You get me into your father's a lawyer, your father's a doctor. You may want to do that. You know what I mean? Your parents are your heroes, so to speak. But he never wanted to teach because he never wanted me to play, because I guess he felt that it wasn't as stable as it should have been. And I think it goes back to, and let me be clear, just because my dad couldn't read, it doesn't mean he couldn't learn. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, hurt people, and so that's why you have the stories of the Dick Griffeys and the Gene Griffins. If you look at their pasts, like if you look at a Dick Griffey, I don't know his story really, but if you look at a Gene Griffin, he had a very bad past. I know Gene Griffin was in jail. I don't know about a Dick Griffey, but I know Gene Griffin was in jail. So they have pasts. So a lot of times when you do things like when you live from survival, then that's how you treat people. You treat people like you take advantage of people when you live. There's two ways to live: out of love and survival mode. When you live
James
out of
Brown
love,
did that.
Right.
James.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you live out of survival mode. So when you live out of survival mode, you're always looking around your shoulder and you're thinking like somebody's going to take advantage of you, not knowing that if you give a person their just due, then they'll stick around longer and they'll be down. You know what I mean? And this goes on to today. The only thing that's helping a lot of these artists is the internet. You know what I mean? In some aspects. I mean, the streaming thing is a different story. But, you know, I'm talking about when it comes to record labels, you know, because, I mean, I'm going to be honest and say that, you know, Gene messed over Teddy. Teddy messed over the people he hang with. I mean, that's I keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in the business no more. So I don't have anything to hide. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's unfortunate. Hurt people, you know, and that's the way. You know, we as people of color need to start reading our contracts if we get them and we need to, you know, I love the movement now of, you know, putting out your own material and things of that nature. And I know that a lot of artists are getting more money than they got in the 80s and 90s. And I applaud that. But still, if these rappers and things are getting big money, what do you think the streaming companies are making? It's that simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
What year did you? Okay.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out what year did you sign with GR Productions?
90.
Okay, so had Redhead come out with "Do the Right Thing" by the time you signed?
Right, Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing came out in like 89, 90.
Yeah, it was 89.
Yeah. And so Do the Right Thing came out. So that's good. That's a good, because you know, Do the Right Thing was originally written for that movie.
Okay, the Spike Lee movie.
Right, the Spike Lee movie. Because Gene was good for that. It's because like our album, New Jack City, that was written for the movie New Jack City. But it didn't get picked up. So Do the Right Thing that Redhead made was written for the movie Do the Right Thing, but it never got picked up and put on the soundtrack. And so Bub sang the background on Do the Right Thing. And so that's around the time I got signed.
Okay. But I was going to wonder, because this is Redhead, your buddy.
That's my
His
buddy.
song was an international hit. I mean, I was in Nigeria when that came out. What were you surprised how big it blew up? And, you know.
Yeah. So this is the funny thing. Like we just call them, you know, so, okay. So you think you got to, back in the 80s, right? You got a kid with red hair. I mean, bright red hair, right? He used to get teased a lot, right? But he used it to his advantage, right? And when I forget his rapping name at first, but then what happened was he started to listen to a lot of Big Daddy Kane and things of that nature. And Redhead was a barber. And so he would cut his own hair. Wow. And so when Big Daddy Kane came out, he started cutting his hair into a flat top, because before that he had it in a small afro. And so when he cut it into this flat top, he kind of got this personality. Plus he was a rapper, right? And he started marketing. So when Gene saw him, he was like, yo, this is instant. I'm marketing this dude for his hair. It's easy math. His name wasn't Redhead at the time. He changed it. I know Gene didn't change it. I know he changed his name from something else to Redhead Kingpin. And when he changed his name to Redhead Kingpin, he took on that persona. And so to answer your question, when he blew up, he was still David Guppy to me. I mean, like, you know, I'm like, but this is the thing. Red never got an ego, never. And Red, what people don't know about Red is that Red at the time could produce just as good as Teddy. People didn't know that.
He's shown that on his second album, though.
Right.
On his second album, a lot of the production was done by him.
Right. And he produced the Big Bub single, I Don't Mind.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he
did the Eminem album as well.
Yeah, he did. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, the Eminem album of Two Girls. So it's like he could produce just as good as Teddy. And so one thing about Teddy back then, you know, it's like Teddy was Teddy. He had a lot of work. And you know, when you do something like Teddy did and like Timbaland did, you change a whole music genre, you're gonna have so many people that want to use you to do their production. And so Teddy just, you know, sometimes I would think he would get overwhelmed, because at that time he didn't have a production team. It was just Teddy. And then Redhead was doing production. And then Zan the Man, I don't know if you know these fun facts, but I don't know. I think Zan had something to do with Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. Because
that was Gene's record.
That's Gene's record. And I think Zan had something to do with that. I think he might have wrote it or whatever. And you know Zan wrote Why You Get Funky on Me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, okay, so that was around, if you
This
notice,
is why we need to find Zan, because he can tie a lot of plots together as well.
But was that Zan wrote it? But that sounds so much like a Teddy production, though.
Which one? What? No, yo,
Why You
it
Get
was
Funky?
not. No,
Wow.
that's Zan.
Yes, but-
I was there. That song was done in Atlanta, and I'm gonna tell you what happened. Gene,
If you hear the Zan track on the House Party soundtrack, it doesn't sound much. It sounds a lot like Why You Get It. The production is so similar.
So that was Zan. That was Zan saying. Zan said that. That's what he would say. He would be like, "Why you get funky on me?" Meaning like, why you dissing me? That was Zan saying. Zan produced that track. Zan wrote that track. I think maybe Mucho and Artie helped, but that's Zan all day. If you notice, you hear Bub say, Gene, I wonder why all these, that he says Gene because Teddy and them were breaking up, right? And Gene flew Big Bub down to Atlanta. The rest of them are not on the background. That's not today on the background of Why You Get Funky on Me. That's Zan, Daryl, and Artie.
Wow.
And Bub. That's not West, Chief, or Love. I love them though. They're my Inglewood peeps, but they are not on the background vocals of Why You Getting Funky on Me. That's Zan, Artie, and I think Bub. And
what about your group though? We need to hear about your group.
What about them?
Well, you're in the midst of New Jack Swing.
Right.
You've just been formed. You've just been put together in this group.
Mm-hmm.
What are your memories? I've just take out all the business side of it. What are your memories of, rapping on it, the production, how you felt about it?
Quite honestly, I mean, I was signed as a solo artist, so I was just happy to be in a mix. Teddy and them were Teddy, but I literally seen Gene, because at the time he called it GEG, Griffin Entertainment Group. And so I saw like a lot of I saw sort of like a rebirth. Let's be clear. I'm not going to say I saw a rebirth of New Jack Swing, is because I got to get, Teddy is the creator of New Jack Swing. So I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is I saw the guys that I was with that had a lot of talent make some good production, some great production. And that was amazing. Like the Artie Hoyles, Timmy Arthur, Zan the Man, Mucho, Speck and them, they're extremely talented. So that was amazing in itself. So being part of that was amazing.
Do you recall the track Jack to This that you rapped on? Because that really showed your skills off.
That was a sample from Full Force.
Can we play it, or are we not allowed to play stuff?
I don't know what I'll say. But that was a sample. That was a sample from a Full Force album. And see, so I was very lyrical, you know what I mean? And so again, to answer your question, even though I love my ARB members, I felt that I was watered down because I was lyrical. And so going back to Jersey, I'm saying this is before like Queen Latifah and Naughty by Nature and all these cats came out, of Jersey like that. Because Naughty by Nature was signed to Sugar Hill at one point, but that's another story. But this is before then. So it's like I was very lyrical. And so I felt like I was watered down on being part of the group. And Coco and Timmy will tell you I was hot because I was down with the black. Those were my brothers. When I got put together with that other group, I was just like, we're just all put together. And I really wasn't feeling it. Now, I just got to be honest. I wasn't feeling it because I was a solo artist and I didn't like the name. I I liked being in the studio, but I'm not going to say that I loved the whole album's production, because I think that we could have done better. But for the most part, I'm glad I was there. I don't want to sound like I'm sounding inconsiderate or ungrateful, because everything happens for a reason. But sometimes you think I think that we could have put out a better project. But at the time, Gene was trying to put something out right after the Black. Is because Gene put Basic Black out as independently. So he was getting his, you got to understand, most of his stuff was being taken away from him. So he was getting his deals back. So he was like, okay, I got this group. Okay, I got that group. I got this group. I got MGM. I got, you know what I mean? So to answer your question, it was bittersweet. I'm sorry, I was long-winded.
What happened to the mastering? Can you recall the actual mastering of the album? Because I remember playing it and thinking something's not right here.
Yeah, it was
mix.
They I think they messed up the mix. There was too much treble in some of the tracks. I think, but it's big overseas, which is ironic to me. It's like in the Asian countries. Yeah.
By Cherish. Did you perform any of the tracks live? Did you get to perform live at the time?
No, because when the Black left, like I said, I was down with when the Black left, I was gone. I left with them. I was like, and it's sort of like, loyalty, to a fault, if you will, is because I wasn't necessarily part of Basic Black. They were just my guys. And so when they left, I was gone. And so when I was gone, Gene told me one thing, and I'll never forget this. He said, "So you want to leave, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I'll be working at McDonald's." And I said, "Yeah, right." But at the time, I didn't know that he had 75% of my publishing. So there's no way I could get signed to anybody else. So yeah, when he means that you're going to be working in, no, he said Burger King. He said, "Yeah, I'll be working in Burger King." What he meant is that you will not be able to sign with anybody else. Nobody's going to touch you because you're signed to me. So,
but can we go back to Nothing But a Party? I mean,
absolutely,
global hit. How did you get invited to be on that to do the rap?
So again, I was down with the Black. So when we moved to he would put us up in these houses, right? See, we would rent a house. I would be there with them. It would be me and Timmy Arthur, and it'd be Basic Black. We'd all have, two to a room. And so anything that they needed a rap on, I would do. And so it was just, this is before Coco came around. So it was basically it was and shout out to CL Smooth and all those cats. But when they sent She's Mine out and it came back, when it came back with CL Smooth in them, I felt some kind of way because I was like, yo, you got me here, but that's political. It was a power move. Eddie F did the track, Novell, I think it was Eddie F or Novell, the Untouchables. So of course they had their own crew. And so CL did it. No different than when Letitia, the lady you were speaking about, when Gene produced her track, Coco was on it. So they had their in-house. So I was the in-house rapper for that crew. So anything that came through, I was writing on it. Okay. So to answer your question, Nothing But a Party and Stupid, and still till today, I've been on two of their recent albums. Mm-hmm. And so it's like they're my guys. So it's like I'm the first one they call.
Did you do any in-store signings? Did you actually go out and actually promote the album, or did it just fall flat on its face?
It fell flat, man, because
I wondered what happened.
Yeah, it fell flat because I was done. Okay, so I'll give you an example. You remember you said you saw this thing where you saw the video. It was on Gene Griffin's thingy. He was doing an interview. Mm. Yeah. All right, at that interview, we were there. It was me, Artie. We were there being interviewed. And I didn't answer any questions. Come on, I'm like 18 years old. I'm like, stuck on my stuff, and I've left my production company. I'm disgruntled. You know what I mean? And I'm not caring. So I'm like, we're getting an interview, and the two other members are answering all the questions, and I'm just sitting there. And so it fell flat on its face because I left. We all just disbanded.
Yeah. You know, when you think back at the time, because that's a very short time frame between when you joined, even when Basic Black joined. I think it was the Christmas party of 1990, where the news filtered through that GR Productions was broken up, and Teddy had released everyone so they could do their thing, and people had to choose between camps.
Right.
You know, I was really, a big fan of Basic Black. I thought, wow, these guys could rival Guy. In fact, when I did listen to Nothing But a Party, I actually did think it was Guy, and I thought Teddy had produced it because it was just that good. I'm sure within the camp, with the success of that track, and also the fact that Motown came and picked up the album, picked up the group, there was a sense of, okay, we're back on our feet. Did you then think, okay, maybe I should write up this our group, and maybe it will become a big thing, or was it just the fact that you just didn't think that the direction was good enough to stick with?
I was loyal, and maybe hindsight is 20/20. You know what I mean? It's like maybe if I would have stuck around, the Black would have been gone. But maybe if I would have stuck around, who was to say what could have happened as far as that part of my career was concerned. Mm-hmm. But I was loyal to them because we were down together, and no different than when Teddy left Gene and Today left Gene, and because the beef was between Teddy and Gene, not Today and Gene. So no different from when Teddy and Gene left and Today left, then Rex and Effect left. Same thing happened with us. Again, I don't know, because it didn't happen that way. I will say that after when I was, trying to get out as an artist, I kind of felt it. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have made that, because it was every man for himself. And you got to understand, when the Black came out, it wasn't an album like the first Guy album. You get what I'm saying? It didn't have an impact like the first Guy album. And so the first Guy album, you're dealing with a person that has changed music entirely. And then you're also dealing with a phenomenal producer. So the Black was different. And if you ask me, even Mucho was getting paid. The rest of them wasn't. But Mucho was getting his checks, because Gene had a way of divide and conquer. Right? And so Gene pulls Mucho aside, and he did the same thing with Teddy. But I'm going to go on record, and people is going to disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'm not in the business no more, so I can give my opinion. Guy was a phenomenal group. Diesel will kill Aaron.
Wow.
Kill him. I'm serious. Diesel is a different dude, man.
He's got an incredible voice.
Diesel. Okay, so Aaron, he's gonna kill me for saying this. But I'm just saying, Aaron has an amazing voice. Aaron is the voice. Diesel he's a different breed, man. The stuff that Diesel, you haven't heard what Diesel can do. You've not heard it. And that's a shame. And people could say you haven't heard what Aaron can do. I get that. But Diesel, there's not another Diesel. I haven't heard anyone to this day that can mess with Diesel, except for Stevie. Diesel will flatten. Let me tell you something, and this is straightforward. We did Motown Soul by the Sea. If you could try and find it,
I remember
YouTube.
it was on the broadcast on the BBC.
Yo, Stevie Wonder told Diesel, "You a bad boy," but we did Motown Soul by the Sea. And at the end, there's this song that the Temptations were singing called Soul to Soul. And Big Bub, everybody was grabbing the mic. Big Bub grabbed the mic and he sang his thing. Diesel towards the end grabbed the mic and he just killed it. He's amazing. I mean, people might say that, because I'm from that camp, blah blah blah. I get it. But he's an amazing. He's amazing. So that's just me.
Yeah,
and I know I'm gonna get flack. Can
I throw another name? Can I throw another name out here?
Yeah.
And see if you knew anything about it. It's like a holy grail.
Who?
Hugh Jack Swing, an album by a group called Edification. Does that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I spoke to Artie Hoyle many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a copy of that album. I know he produced it. He did a lot of stuff on it. So
Edification was about to be on Commission's ass. That's how good Edification was. Wow. Edification was signed
to A&M.
They were signed to A&M. And Artie Hoyle, I think Mucho did some tracks on the Edification album. Yeah, they were amazing. Gospel group, yeah. So many people came through that camp and Gene turned them down. Arrested Development came through that camp and Gene turned them down. Dallas came through the camp before he got with Joyce Spinderella. Gene turned him down.
Who is this? Who is another name for you? Who is Z Mutaz?
That's Gene.
This album is it? I'm thinking who? Because he's on.
That's Gene. Gene.
Wow.
Gene changed his name. That's Gene. Z Mutez. That's Gene. Now you said earlier you have certain podcasts that's going to blow. This is going to be one of them. That's Gene. Gene is Z Mutez because he was taking people's credit, so he changed his name from Gene Griffin to Z Mutez. That's Gene.
You can't see that. Do you remember these guys? Mind. I don't know if you can see that.
That's Made by Man. Mind.
Yes.
That's Zeno, Billy, and Steve. Steve Beware. The name is Mind. Mind.
Another Gene Griffin thing.
Okay, but let me tell you a Mind story. Okay. Now I'm telling you some jewels now. Okay. So Mind is from Detroit. One of the members from Mind, actually Mind's name used to be Made by Man. Okay, so they changed their name from Made by Man to Mind. Okay, Gene made that name up. The reason why the reason why the name was Made by Man is because if you remember the remix of Rex and Effect, yes. There's a part where Teddy's like, everything is made by man. Okay.
Yes, right. Yes.
Okay. So the name was Made by Man. And then Gene changed it from Made by Man to Mind. It was called MBM. They were called MBM first. They changed the name from Made by Man to Mind. This is before they came to Atlanta. One of Made by Man, I think it might be Billy or Steve. I don't know. Steve Beware or Billy. One of those guys is Zan's cousin. Okay. When Gene started working with Basic Black, Zan got put on the shelf. Gene started putting more attention on the Black. Zan got mad. Zan left Gene. When Zan left Gene, Made by Man got signed to Gene with this song called Tell Me What You Want to Do. And Zeno is an amazing singer. He sounds like the guy from Tony. He sounds like him and Stokely. That's his tone.
Okay.
All right. So Zeno, they had this thing called Tell Me What You Want to Do. Tell me what you want me to do. Right? It's a mid-tempo. Tell me what you want me to do. So when Zan went and left Gene, he went to Teddy and he took Zeno's demo. Guess what song that song on the New Guy album is?
Tell me which.
That song, Tell Me What You Want Me to Do.
Yes.
Teddy took Tell Me What You Want Me to Do and made the song on the Guy album, Dog Me Out.
Oh, the Future album.
Yeah. Yep. It's not the originals, not the remix.
Okay. Why you want to dog
one?
me out?
Which one is the one?
The original one with the George Clinton sample was the original.
The original
the
one
House
that Heavy D that Heavy D's rapping on.
That's Do Me Right.
Oh, you mean Do Me Right? Do Me Right.
Do Me Right.
I
Do Me
just
Right,
wanna
yes.
do the thing.
Yep. Because okay, so the Zeno song went like this: Girl, tell me what you wanna do. I don't have time to spend these silly games with you. I want you, you want me. Love was meant to be. That's how it went. And so Zan took that because he was mad at Gene, brought it to Teddy. Teddy took it and made Do Me Right.
Wow.
Took the whole all Aaron is saying, we went it together. Same melody, same music and everything. Teddy took it. You can ask Zeno now. He may not want to speak about it because he's at the business. But I don't care. You know, this is the thing. You know, we all get inspired by other people. You know what I mean? You know, just give a man his credit. Just give that group their credit. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So Mind is Zeno, Billy, who Billy went on to do some great things. Billy produced Return of the Mac with Jamie Foxx.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And he also produced T-shirt and panties for with Jamie Foxx for Adina Howard. His name is Billy Moss. Billy Moss.
Yes, that's the other guy from the group.
Yeah.
A question came in from Robert Brown asking any info on Pretty in Pink track All About You.
That was an Artie track. Artie did that. Or Timmy Arthur did that. What does he want to know?
I mean, you know, yeah. So who produced it, and what was the? I mean, could the girls sing?
So what happened was
that was one of Chaka Khan's family members.
Oh,
She's still singing now.
Amira, yeah, I think so. Who it is, yeah.
I don't necessarily know the story of them, but I do know that Gene did write that.
Oh.
But Gene had a way of writing where he couldn't write hooks. He would just. This is what I want you to say. If you listen to the New Jack City on my album, right? You'll notice that there's no hook on there. All he's saying is New Jack City, and all he's saying is everyone in the corner, and they're just singing through the whole thing. There's no hook. You get what I'm saying? So Gene had a way. Gene couldn't write. I'm not going to say he couldn't write hooks. I'm going to say he would just say, sing this and sing that and, you know, sing that and sing. But sometimes there would be like, it wouldn't have any structure, you know? So Gene wrote all of that. And what would happen would be Artie would make it into a song. Gene would tell him what he want and Artie would make it into a song. Now, let me rewind and say, you know, have you ever seen, okay, I'm not going to compare these two because it's very controversial, but have you ever seen Schindler's List?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever seen the part where the guy says, I'm making all the money. I'm doing all of this. What do you do? And then what's the name says, I sell pizzazz. Stop.
Yeah.
That's Gene. That's Gene.
So that's my favorite movie of all time. So
that's Gene. You know what I'm saying? He's the show, you know, pizzazz style. Yeah, that's what he does. Understand what I'm saying? So
when did you meet Usher?
Oh, you sort of thing. I met Usher as a chef. So I'm an executive. So what I did is I took all of the contacts that I know in the music industry, and I just reverted them to food. So I'm an executive chef now. So I met Usher through someone. Okay, so there's a lady named Marcia Glover. Marcia Glover is married to Usher's. Okay, Usher. If you remember, about a couple of years ago, Usher's the woman that Usher was married to, her son,
Ryan Glover.
Ryan Glover, yes. So Marsha Glover is married to Ryan Glover, right? Ryan Glover unfortunately lost his child when he was married to Usher's ex-wife. They're both his ex. And so Ryan Glover, Marsha used to work for Neiman Marcus. I was the executive chef at Neiman Marcus. And so Marsha was like, hey, you know, I need you to come over and do something for us. And I said, okay. So I come over and I make a meal for them. And who slides in but Usher?
Wow.
And so that's how I met Usher. That's how I know him. And so you know, so like 3 degrees of separation. You know what I mean? So now Ryan Glover, he owns Greenwood Bank, and he I think he's a co-CEO of Bounce TV. He was. I mean, he was back then. I don't know now, but that's what I did. I kind of like use my music contacts, because if anybody knows Ryan Glover, knows that he was part of. He had a record label back in the days. And so he got out of the music and got into other things. And so that's how I met Usher and Mayor Kasim Reed and things of that nature.
What did you do when Arb ended then? You left, obviously. What happened then?
I'm glad my parents told me to go to school. You know, I got a degree. I have a degree in marketing and business. So I just jumped into what my degrees were, and I just started working. And then after that, I was like, you know, I want to go to culinary school, and I went to culinary school. And one of my first people I cooked for was Puffy. You know, so you know, it was cool. It was good. And so, you know, I just used my contacts, and I used to work at Justin's in New York, and then they had a Justin's in Atlanta. And shout out to Joe Rickerson. He was the executive chef, corporate chef. And so I just kind of like kept the people I knew close by, you know? So do I ever look back? No.
Of what could have been, you know, if the situations were different?
No,
okay.
Absolutely not. And the reason why I don't is because I'm Muslim, and I'm born and raised Muslim. And it is what's called haram. Haram means forbidden to think that shoulda, woulda, coulda, because shoulda, woulda, coulda is literally saying that God didn't have his plan. You get what I'm saying? And that it is literally saying that if you had it in your hands, you would have did it better. No, you'll never do it better than God is going to do it for you. So I never, ever thought shoulda, woulda, coulda. I would say that I would always tell people, like, don't make the same mistakes I made. You know what I mean? But I never thought shoulda, woulda, coulda, because shoulda, woulda, coulda would have never got me. You know, this is where, you know, there's a saying that says you are exactly where you need to be. You know, and so I don't believe in shoulda, woulda, coulda. I believe in you are exactly where you need to be, and God always has his plan. You just have to be patient and understand that his plan is his plan.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, it is. Okay, go ahead, Sheldon.
I have a question for you, because you come from, you know, two parents
Yeah.
who were in the music industry during the period where it was like, in the music business back then, it was more of a working class situation. You know, nobody turned out to be millionaires. You were a working musician.
Absolutely.
So when you look in terms of absorbing that, did it play any part in your decision to go back in the 9-to-5 world? And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of people who have a lot of fame for being in the music business and whatnot. And then when things slow down for them, they don't necessarily, they try to stay in it for as long as they can, but they never really consider going back into the 9-to-5 world.
Well, me personally, you know, I didn't have a problem going. Okay, because I think that's a case-by-case basis. Okay, because I didn't have a problem going back into the 9-to-5 world because I wasn't that known. You get what I'm saying? If I probably was known more, then I would probably be reluctant, because, you know, people notice me and they'd be like, hey, what happened to you? But I wasn't reluctant because I wasn't as known as other artists probably could be or were. And so I guess it's a case-by-case basis. And for me, I wasn't known like that. So it didn't really bother me too much to get back into the 9-to-5 kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I think it's a choice that you have to make. case by case. But then again, you got to look at things like COVID, which was the great equalizer around the world. And, you know, you found people doing things that like, they're like, look, I got to pivot. And so when it comes time to feed your family, I don't think that you should have any kind of arrogance or any kind of whatever. You do what you do to feed yourself and your family. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's a case by case basis. You know what I mean? Me personally, it didn't bother me that much because I saw this thing. That I forget her name, but she's a comedian, and she said that Cat Williams told her she was broke, and Cat Williams said, "No, you're not broke. You don't have any money." He said because you are operating off of you're not using your talent. You're using money. So once you use your talent, you'll be successful. You know, and so I think that everyone has a talent that God has gifted them with. And I think that once you find that talent and you go for that talent, there's no choice but money to come to you. Your money's going to come to you as long as you stay, you know, as they say, 10 toes down and go for what you know. But again, I didn't feel any kind of way because it was something that I needed to do. You know, I thank both my parents because they sent me to school, and I went to school and I have degrees. So I'm like, I can fall back.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it is. I mean, as we wrap up, I mean, it's been amazing hearing your story.
Cool.
We always would like to be able to get us pictures. So if you had your top 5 favorites, say New Jack or even R&B tracks, what would make your top 5?
My top 5 would probably be. This is all across. This is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just top 5.
Okay, I'm gonna throw some. I'm gonna throw some at you that you probably wouldn't even guess. I like "Mind on a Trip." That's 5. "Mind on a Trip." George. That's 5.
Wow.
Oh, were you there when they were doing that?
Yep, that's number 5.
Were you in around when they were making the track?
Yeah, I was around.
Okay.
That's number 5. Number 4 would probably be "Spend the Night," Guy.
Great track.
Yeah. Number 3 would be "Kissing Game," High Five. Number 2 would be, it's a toss up between "Goodbye Love" and "Piece of My Love" from Guy. Is that number 2?
Yep.
And number 1, my number 1 track for New Jack for me is "Special Kind of Fool" by The Black. And the reason why that is because I was there. And it's a difference from when you're there. You know what I mean? Zan wrote that. And it was so crazy because it wasn't New Jack sounding because Daryl wasn't using his full voice. He was using his falsetto, right? And so, but when we would go on the road, like the responses we would get from "Special Kind of Fool" were crazy. And so my number 1 would more than likely be "Special Kind of Fool."
It's an incredible track. It really is.
Incredible. Oh, I forgot. I like also. That's a good. I mean, I know you said 5, but I like is up there in number 4. Yeah, by Guy.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, what for you, first album or future?
Okay, that's a great question. I love the first album, right? But I respect the future album, and I like that as a close second, and I'm going to tell you why. Is because Teddy dealt with somebody completely taking his style and trying to put another group against Guy who had their own sound, but you know, it was sort of like modeled after the first Guy album, if you will. And then the second Guy album, Teddy completely flipped it, and was like, I'm telling you, when we first heard the second Guy album, The Black, and we were blown away. Because you know they got a song on there talking about the basic move you made is basically a waste. Why we're in the race just to come in second place. I was like, I killed. Oh, you hurting me. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I was like, I literally felt like Dr. Dre and them would have probably felt when they heard No Vaseline by freaking Ice Cube. It's because they killed it. You know what I'm saying? So the second guy album was crazy to me because he just changed. He was like, okay, bump you. I'm gonna completely change my sound. And he changed his sound. So, you know, there were songs that I like better. I didn't like the slow songs on the second album.
Oh yeah, the Teeth
Yeah,
Mixer Nights.
yeah,
And,
I wasn't a fan of those, but everything else, Teddy's Teddy, man.
Did
I
you,
mean,
did you know anything about? I spoke to Mucho years ago, and he said they were making a second Basic Black album at the time, and
they were
recorded stuff to
were.
like to discs, and they got stolen. He told me
they
got
were.
stolen.
They had this song called. They had three songs that I heard. One of them was called "It's All Right." The other one was called "Give Love a Chance," and the third one was called "No More Mr. Nice Guy." They went so "No More Mr. Nice Guy" was a mid tempo, and it was basically like dissing like we ain't nice no more, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Give Love a Chance was sort of like a kissing game kind of beat, and It's All Right was a slow song, and those are the three songs I heard. They never recorded anything else as Basic Black. As far then 911 came about.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just as before we wrap up with Idris, Sheldon, any final questions? Then ask Stevie.
I'm just blown away by the interview. I mean, it's a lot of
that's
stories, a lot of stories
man.
floating around there, and with each person, they kind of like close the gap on that whole GR situation. Because when you talk about you are going out to Duluth and Berkeley Estates out there, you know, it just brings back that whole situation. So
yeah,
hey, I'm just blown away.
Yeah, man. There's so many stories, bro. But you know, certain people could tell them in certain because when you're in the business, you kind of like don't want to, I'm not in the business no more. So it's like I'm like, okay, this is what happened, and for the most part. But at the end of the day, there's stories like this everywhere. I mean, I knew about the New Edition story. I knew about the, Stephanie Mills slapping Jean story. I mean, all of these there's a bunch of stories, but I was there for a lot of them. And, but it's great. I mean, one of the greatest things I've seen recently is New Edition and Guy on the road together. Because, when all that stuff happened back in the days, New Edition, it was on Al Heyman, on an Al Heyman tour. When that thing happened between New Edition and Guy, neither one of them could tour with Al Heyman anymore. And so the only way New Edition or any person could tour with Al Heyman again is when New Edition changed to BBD. And then they started touring with Al Heyman again because of that whole, getting the guy from the security from Guy getting shot, So it was great to see them on tour together, man, because all of these things, these guys got history, so some good and some bad. But at the end of the day, it's great to see all of them on tour, all of them healthy, and all of them doing their thing, man. It was amazing.
Yeah. Stevie, any?
I'm just like say I'm blown away, like Sheldon says. I mean, I knew you'd have some stories. I
Yeah,
didn't
man.
realize how connected you were, before the ARB album and after it. And listen,
those are my guys, man.
You know what I mean? Just blown away.
Yeah, and shout out to the Black Man. Check out their new album Autograph. It's amazing. They got two new members, two new members. They're not Diesel, but they're trying. They have a different. Sean and Anthony. They have.
Listen, is there any chance you can reach out to Redhead or Zan for us?
I can try. I haven't spoken to them in a while, but and shout out to Diesel's family. I think Diesel may have passed away from COVID because he passed away. He passed away 2020 in February. And COVID first cases was in March. So man, but that was a bad boy. But Basic Black Autograph album is amazing. Those are my guys, and man, great being on here, man. Appreciate
we went through every song on the autograph, and yeah, so it was definitely, and also I mean, was it tough for you getting back into the flow when they got you onto that track?
Nah,
Baby, it's a new Jack.
it's so if you notice that Baby It's a New Jack, y'all be knowing who that's from the first album. I say that on the first album, and they just took my voice as a sample and put it on the second. So if you listen to
you rapped it, but didn't you rap on it?
Yeah, if you listen to the anthem on the first on the album that they had before Autograph.
Yeah,
I say, Baby, It's a New Jack, y'all be knowing who that. And what they did is they took that sample and made a song out of it, which is now on this Autograph album is So Sexy. It's called So Sexy.
Yeah.
And but with the question, to answer your question, no, man, I mean, I love, I don't do it, on a regular, but it's always a passion of mine, music and food are something that I love to do. So I'm always keeping my ears to the streets and, seeing what's out there. So it wasn't hard for me to go in. I was actually supposed to be on the other song back in the day, but I live in Charlotte now, so I couldn't get down there to do it. So I was supposed to be on 2 tracks, but I couldn't get to do the second one. So
I have to remind the viewers as well that the ARB album has been re-released in Japan on CD. So
I guess the ARB album is being re-released in Japan.
It's a great New Jack album, despite you not feeling too happy about it.
Absolutely.
We love this album, New Jackers.
Absolutely, and if they like it enough for to get me, Coco, and Artie to Japan, maybe we'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard so many. I mean, everyone who's come on board from Basic Black, Mucho, Timmy Gatlin, Sprague, Tammy Lucas, even guys from Uptown have all had their say about Gene Griffith. What could you say, just in passing, anything positive you could just, I know he took everyone's money and all the publishing, but was anything positive we could just end on Gene? Just at
the at the end of the day, the man has a family, and at the end of the day, again, I'm Muslim, so we're not supposed to judge people. Allah is the greatest of planners. Allah can only judge. And so, I mean, the great thing I would say that he did is, like I said, he sees talent. And what he did with his talent, what he did with what he saw is what he did with what he saw. But he sees talent, and that's, you can't deny that. No one could deny that. And Teddy Riley and Aaron Hall and Timmy Gatlin and Spec KB and Mucho and myself and Artie Hoyle, Xander Man, Redhead, everybody down. He sees talent. And he knows how to nurture talent. So that's that, and a lot of people say that about him. He knows how to nurture talent. At the end of the day,
we didn't mention Coco enough. Do you think she's got any stories to tell?
Absolutely, absolutely. Coco's into making movies now. I'll get you her number.
Okay.
Absolutely, that's my girl.
Wow.
Coco's cool people.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, we're definitely going to bring you back onto
thanks,
onto our podcast, because it'd be good just to be able to, especially as we get back into focus on the music, because we didn't realize the wide-ranging areas that you were going to cover. So there'll be so much more, because we wanted to dedicate this opportunity to celebrate New Jack and really dive into other areas of it and stuff like that. But
okay.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you joining in.
Absolutely. And, shout out to my people in the UK. I have childhood friends in the UK, Salim Acha in Bolton and in Bury, and shout out to my bruvs in the UK.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all take care, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Idris. Thank you.
No problem, brother.
Super respect to your parents, man. Super respect to your parents.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man.
Yes,
take
sir.
care, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts. You know what? My thought is that I think Stevie kind of talked about this before. he was saying that it's more, it was more records than the Bobby album and the Guy albums. I want to use that example to where when you start looking at, even though there's the major players, but there's also some other people who were there that whose story is just as significant. So great interview.
How many dots? Look how many dots were connected this evening.
I'm gonna tell you,
incredible.
He connected a lot of dots, and it was just like it was stuff that I was familiar with, and he connected it. I was like, okay, yep, that's that. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Yes.
I mean, what about that revelation about that group of Diesel, Aaron Hall,
and Dinky?
Yeah. So Mucho had, when I interviewed him first, he did mention, and what Mucho said was the fact that, and Idris confirmed it, was that Aaron was on a lease. They were concerned that he was gonna leave, because I think he realized he signed a bad contract and he was about to leave. So Mucho's the backup. So Diesel was the backup, was supposed to replace Aaron. I remember when Clarels mentioned that that Teddy said, "Hey, do you want to come back in, because we might be replacing Aaron." So you can see how everything ties in. That so Aaron was about to get replaced, because he probably realized, man, this is, because they talked about Aaron wanting to quit the music industry because he realized he was only getting 25% of anything, so that was Diesel's role, was to come in. But I think Aaron just realized, okay, I might as well suck it up and just manage and continue. But when go ahead.
When you look at that time period, I think Stevie brought this up. It's that period between, when you look at everything that happened, you're talking about 88, 89. A lot was going on. Obviously, it spills over into 90, but when you're seeing like a lot of those classic records are made in that 80, 88, 89 period, tail end 87, but 88, 89 is when you see all the activity going on. It's just amazing to hear.
I think there's much stuff we haven't heard that as much came out as well. There's a whole heap of stuff that we've not heard released that these guys know everything about. We're just not privy to it, really, which is a shame. At least we're finding bits out, though.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I think, from my point, I mean, I focus more on the personality but not the history as much, because it's just too much history. But we can always get Idris back, get Mucho on, and Mucho can go on set. He tends to he can go really uncensored when he gives his interviews. But hey, it's live, so we can't edit it. So, but yeah, it was really great that he what he shared and how he shared, but his musical, the parents. So I hadn't heard of his dad. But Sheldon, you jumped out when you heard who his dad was.
Yeah, because his father's
Sheldon. I really was.
Because when he said it, because the reason it's funny, because when he said the name, right, and I saw his name right there, he said my father. I said, oh my God, don't say Idris Muhammad, the drummer, right? His name is underneath. I said, I was like, I didn't put two and two together. And then he said his mother. I was like, that's your mother. I was like, oh my God. I was just like. And they start going into the T-neck and all of that, and I was like, okay, George Benson, Engel, he was running off the names. I said, he's got it. Boom, 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 boom. I said, this dude, oh my God. But yeah, and then to be there behind the scenes, and he was there, like when Don't Take My Mind on a Trip was, that's 89, man. It's just amazing. Just to be there for that whole New Jersey, New York connection. Them putting that situation together, man. I felt like I was just reading a chapter in the books, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Imagine being in the studio when they were recording Special Kind of Fool, Basic Black, and he was there, like you say.
Yeah, and that record, and he's right, because here in the States, that record it wasn't like a single, but I'll tell you, they played that on the radio all the time, and they would have like the late night Quiet Storm at nighttime R&B stuff, and that song got a lot of airplay, and I think it was, like he said, it was different. It wasn't a New Jack type of ballad. it was a mature ballad. It was written very well, and then you seeing Diesel use the different range. I'm gonna tell you, when that Basic Black album, that was a kind of a stopgap for people that the Future hadn't come out yet, and it was like the Basic Black album arrived. It kind of arrived in the nick of time because we saw what happened with Guy, and it was a void, and that Basic Black album really filled the void. It really did.
Well, listen, for fans of Basic Black, and I've just put this to the viewers, you need to get the Arb album, you need to get the Mind album. There's bits on the Letitia album that's very Basic Black gene, and there's what we're talking about earlier, the Edification, which is like a holy grail. It's so hard to get hold of though, but it's like a gospel. It's like Gene Griffin and Basic Black doing gospel. There's a guy called Cliff Jones singing. It's incredible. It's an incredible album. And it just, again, didn't really... CDs got pressed up. There was some promo tapes, but it's just got lost. Completely lost.
And he talks about Commission, which is a big popular gospel group in America. And I swear, when I saw the Today album cover, because they were in these cutouts and they had these suits, and I thought it was a gospel album. I thought they were a gospel group. I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing
the cover of it, right, has actually got, the guy's first album with the Griffin on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's got the Griffin again on the Edification album. I thought, is this the new guy? And they've actually put the Griffin on as well. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that he did say, and what we're hearing so much, is the fact that when you can nurture talent, but when you steal and eat all of the talent's worth, then it doesn't take long before they recognize and move away. So I think Gene could have created something special if he had been fair, from day one. But you know what, you are what you've been created. So you've been hurt, you've been robbed, you're gonna hurt and rob other people. But he wasted a big opportunity. So
have
guys,
we got time to get through this top 10 before we
so we are so for those who weren't here last week, 2 weeks ago, we were doing our top 10 favorite New Jack Swing tracks. We went from 10 down to 8. So today we're going to do 7, 6, and 5. So Stevie, what would make your number 7?
I went for the guys N Touch, and it was between Too Hype and Crazy for You, and I ended up going for the 12-inch mix of Crazy for You. I just love that record. That was my number 7 anyway.
Okay. Sheldon, what about yourself?
My number 7 is a curveball. It's Ralph Tresvant's Rated R. The first track off of the Sensitivity album, Ralph Tresvant album, because it was a different edge, but then it also reminded me, it gave me a insight of what Ralph would have been had he come out before Bobby, because everything that Bobby was doing, Ralph taught. There's an interview out there on YouTube where Ralph said he had the blueprint for that. So it was just to hear him do that. The beat was nice, and it was a Jam and Lewis take on a New Jack production, which was really dope. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, I do think that when Ralph came out last, it came out with Sensitivity, I think we wanted something more upbeat. But if it come out before BBD, I don't think you could have. I think Bobby just blew up into a different level. But if it had come out before BBD, maybe so. My number 7 was Teddy's Jam 2.
The album mix?
The album mix, yeah. I just loved Aaron's vocals on that. Did it, and I loved the production on that. That was my favorite Teddy's Jam. I loved 1, but that was my favorite. Number 6, Stevie.
Don't wake me, I'm dreaming. Sorry, I'm killing that. I'm just killing that.
Christopher Williams, I'm dreaming. Okay.
Obviously from the New Jack City soundtrack. Again, just at the time, was blown away when I first heard that.
Yeah.
Bought the 12-inch, bought the album. I can still listen to that today and really appreciate it. But imagine hearing that for the first time back then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those were the songs made the movie. Sheldon, what about yourself?
The Dog Me Out remix by Guy.
Okay.
Oh, brilliant remix.
John Marie did the remix. That was Teddy. Yeah, he was able. He co remixed that. That was the first thing Teddy gave him to do. My number 6 is "Let's Stay Together" remix. The one with the there's the drums on that "Let's Stay Together," baby. Let's stay. I mean, I can play that. It's in one of my top 5. Yeah, Let's Stay Together.
It's quite housey sounding.
Yeah.
Not totally, but you could see with.
But Teddy's drums on that is the same drums he had on Kissing Game and Doom. You know, when he, Dave Wade did the. Dave Wade was the engineer, and there's a way the way the sound was when Dave Wade did the engineering and mixing. I just love that track. I love the remix. The original version is okay, but the remix version, which is a lot more extended and more focused on the drums, and Tammy Lucas singing in the background. Yes. Number 5, Stevie.
It's really, really, really difficult from here on. This is a record that my late mother loved as well. It was also a record that when I used to walk to school with my friends, when I played it to one of the guys, and they didn't know anything about New Jack Swing. When I played them this record, one of them went out and bought it. I wore the 12-inch out. And if I had to, again, it's so hard. Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel.
Okay.
Number 5, classic.
You know what? That's a dope record because I like they do the vocals. You get more of Bobby's vocals in that. I love that. Yes.
Okay.
An all-time classic.
Yeah. Okay. It was big, and when I was in Nigeria, the rumor was that Karen White was supposed to sing it, but there was too much rap, so they gave it to Bobby, and of course, everyone has disputed it. But that's how it was a good, and I think it captured the essence of the time. It wasn't as I actually did prefer to My Prerogative, but I don't know how My Prerogative became that big. My number 5 is from my all-time favorite album. Something Just Ain't Right. I love the intro.
The arpeggio on the keyboard.
It is my ringtone. I just love the keyboard entrance, and I just love the whole thing. Tossing. Teddy was just, I think it's his best body of work on an album. That the Make It Last Forever album. Doing all the tracks and with low production. I think. When they always say that your best works is when you don't overthink, I just think he was just free, didn't no pressure, just did his thing.
You know what? I kind of agree because what it is that there's no sampling. The music is very musical. I'll just say that.
Yeah. No samples and stuff like that. Yeah. And if you think of that's the model that Devontae. So Devontae Swing, the whole first Jodeci album was based on that. The keyboards, the whole vibe, that was the whole Make It Last. And Teddy just went away from that. If you'd listen to Goodbye Love and Piece of My Love, the same type of that style, he just left it and started to get all technical and stuff, which it still was good, but they lost the soul that he had in the first Guy album and the Make It Last Forever album. I think he just.
I kind of look at it like Michael Jackson too. Well, Michael Jackson started to veer off into the more technical aspect of it. The music was still good. You kind of lost the core of what he was,
Yeah. So we've done our 5. So guys, next time we will go.
5, Sheldon. Can't remember. Did you?
Oh, I gotta get my 5. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you good. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna do, since she's talking about Tammy Lucas, Big Bub. I like your style. Love that. And Tammy doing the vocal, and again, when you look at the whole Teddy, I like how Teddy has that dramatic intro in his records, and he's playing it, and Bub is like, "If loving you is, and then Tammy, oh my God, yeah,
there's
man.
something.
I think that was the best record to come out, best swing record in 1992 by a mile.
Yeah. I mean that House Party and House Party 2 those two soundtracks were, they gave them some spots on that and they just delivered with some really good. I love those two albums, House Party and House Party 2 soundtracks. That Yo Baby Yo. I mean, it was. When as we're talking, I'm transported back to 1990, and the music was just. It was just somebody just said about Dangerous. I mean, Dangerous was I don't know. You guys can come
Dangerous,
in and talk about it
Dangerous
as an
to
album.
me. Dangerous to me. Obviously, it was necessary because Michael Jackson, Quincy was done, and it allowed Michael Jackson to ride the new style. But for me, out of all of them, Dangerous was also kind of, certain songs were really great, but it was kind of almost like it was trendy. When I look back at it, it's a dope album, but to me, out of all of the albums, to me, it hasn't aged as well. And it may be because of the technology, but there's some great songs that are on that record. But as a whole, it's kind of, to me, it hasn't aged as well as the previous albums. But of course, Remember the Time kind of stood out because it was totally different from the rest of the songs of the album. But but Dangerous, but it's still, because when we heard it, we were excited because it put Michael Jackson right in the pocket of what was going on, so it was necessary. If Michael Jackson would have come out with something else other than Dangerous, it would have been good.
It felt like half an hour to me. We heard how many Teddy Riley produced tracks that he'd done, and only like seven made the album. It felt like half an album. Well, they were good. They were very good tracks.
They were, but I think to me, it was almost like it was a halfway half. It wasn't really a Teddy production. Then it wasn't really a Michael stuff. I think because when you look at the Bobby album, or when you look at say some of the Guy album, it didn't have the soul that Teddy and Michael were known for. It just felt like it was too. It just felt like it was. It just felt like it was. Remember the Time was probably the only one that really he had the soul in there. I wish they'd have kept Joy. That would have been great. That type of soul sound. So yeah, it was tough.
But to be fair, Teddy, I saw an interview one time. Teddy was talking about how he wanted Michael Jackson to go back and sing the way he used to. There was some records that he had, like one record was called Good Times. Michael Jackson had. He wanted Michael Jackson to have that warm sound, to go back to singing like that. Yeah. And Michael Jackson didn't want to do it. Michael Jackson was like, that's my old style. So
no, because he was so blown away by Rhythm Nation that he wanted to recreate that type. So that's why, who was it? Jimmy Jam was saying it on Questlove that there's something about Rhythm Nation that he just wanted to capture, and then he started to look for that sound. So Dangerous album, the History album, it was that type of bam bam bam, completely away from the soul stuff that we got from Off the Wall. And even the stuff that we got from Bad. So unfortunately, I mean, Teddy did his best. I mean, but when I look at the album, I don't take it as warmly. I prefer Invincible in some ways. It feels like a more better album stuff. But anyway, we could go on, and then of course putting aside around, Dangerous should have been the Bobby album, and I agree. I think Teddy had everyone from Bob. He had Bob. He had Mary, Marsha, and Mary. He had Tammy. He had Blacks. We had everyone working on that album, and he could have done some magic with the Dangerous album if given a spot. But guys, we didn't. Let's reflect on the show as we get ready to wrap up. It's been 2 hours. Believe it or not, we didn't expect it to be this long, but. I'll start off with you, Stevie. What was your thoughts of today's episode?
I'm just more than what I expected. Hearing what we heard today, after 30 years, hearing all this is just incredible.
Yeah. There was actually a lot that he had to say, but
No.
he was going so it was just so much, and he was flipping through stuff, and it was like, wow, okay, we need to bring him back, and then almost like have come with some direct questions, and then talk about that as opposed to how we went, because he was just going here and dropping gems. It was like,
it could have been a half chat, really, interview, to be quite honest. You know what I mean? It could have been. It's got that feel to it. It's got an epic feel, a lot of story.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the truth. If it was a halftime chat story, we would have spent the first third of it talking about his parents, yes, and then the influence of that. So then moving to England. So because I focus on the journey, I would have missed out a lot of the music stuff. So having it, so that's a big difference. So I think in this context, we can all throw in those kinds of elements. But we will definitely have to bring him back, and then we can focus on some good stuff.
I just hope we can get Zan and Redhead Kingpin now through it. We'll see though.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can all reach out. I mean, I'll try and get out back to Mucho. I'll actually, we may get Mucho on, and then after we get him, as I said, he is unfiltered, but we'll get Mucho on, and then after we get Mucho, we can try and get I know he's in touch with Zan and Redhead.
Has there been anything since the Timmy Gatlin, Damien Hall, anything since that, or has it all gone quiet? Maybe we should just leave it there, actually.
Yeah. Sheldon, what about yourself? What are your thoughts on today?
I'm gonna tell you, it's when you get a guest on and you just kind of just don't know how it's going to go ahead and come out, obviously. And I know that he talked about a lot of different things, and then he tied it back in. And I think he did. It was great because all of those things kind of impacted the music, his creativity, influences, and everything that was going on at the time or whatever. So he kind of it was like twofold, because he talked about the music, but he also talked about the era, which is great for the fans who either remember the era or who didn't know anything about it for him. And I think probably because we've heard and aware of so many different things, understand where you're coming from. But I think it was great. But being behind the scenes, behind a lot of those songs, it'd be great to hear him talk about how they were made and the impact of those records. But yeah, it was great. It was great to me.
I think for me, the fact that he came from music royalty, I mean, it was good that you knew his parents, and then they sent him to England. I mean, okay, Sheldon, more than all of us. Most people don't leave their states. I mean, maybe it's changed now, but when I went to college in the state, most people didn't leave their county, not talk of moving states. And now he's moved. They sent him to England to go to college, to go to school. I mean, that's just like, you got to pay for something.
But when you look at during that time, his parents were overseas, because he went to school. His parents, they went to like Vienna, they went to Europe.
Yeah, I mean that's
early 80s. But remember, they're working there. He already said it. Because during that time, that his mother was like a rock and roll singer. So they always had a fan base. So for them, it wasn't like they just dropped them off and they just went back to the States. They're always coming back. And then he also said that, they were performing over there. So, but when you hear about it, a young person say, okay, yeah, I went to school in England, boarding school or whatever that is, but then when I knew that when they went to Vienna and all of that, and he kind of put it in perspective, but it's out of the ordinary, because you don't. Yeah. That's like some Fresh Prince type
Yeah. So Stevie, that's what I would have focused on, because I'm like, how did that shape you and stuff like that, and listen to, because he's very eloquent in how he talks. It's like, the fact that he just, okay, I've gone to college, I'm going to move into this profession, connections and ways that, so you could see he's got, he's really grounded, really, so. With the music royalty, living living in a well-off environment, so I took a lot of that and thought, okay, so his perspective around things, okay, Gene says you're going to work in Burger King. He moved on and stuff. So,
and that's why I asked that question in terms of the whole 9 to 5 situation, because one, his spirituality, where he comes from, and then he's not starstruck. You know what I'm saying? To where a lot of young people are into the music, and then all of a sudden you're thinking that this is my whole world. But he had a whole wealth of experience, music, non-music, to where he's not really phased. Because again, he's a rapper. So most rappers, man, it's like, okay, I got to get this deal. I got to get back on. But you know, he had it in perspective. And then think about it. He's still a young man. He's like maybe 24, 25 years old. He's like, you know what? Okay, I'm going here.
Yeah.
So it's a great story. Great story.
Yeah, definitely.
He messaged me years ago on Facebook, and he told me that he'd basically went to college in Bury. That's how I got in contact with him. That's how I heard from him. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. That college literally down the road from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, definitely the redhead Zan. Trying to reach them up, but I'll get Mucho because he knows them. But we'll try and get Mucho on the show. But it's been great, guys. We want to thank you guys for watching and supporting us, and always invite you to send comments because it forms part of the show. As you can see, we put them up and stuff like that. So we've got 2 weeks time. We'll be back. Either with a surprise guest or some more New Jack Swing talk. So. Final words, Stevie, and then Sheldon, before we say goodbye to our friends.
Great episode. Great concept. Again, guys, Stevie, you the New Jack Encyclopedia. You the New Jack Rain Man. To be able to pull all those titles out the air, and all of that. So really, really great. Because I remember seeing that album cover years ago. But I didn't pick it up, obviously. But for you to just have that recall with that, man, such great. So
thank you, sir.
I loved it.
Now, all I'm going to say, don't believe a thing about the New Jack Swing. That's all I'm going to say to the next episode.
So, all right, guys. So we thank you, and we'll definitely see you around. Take care.
Right.
Good night
now. Good night. Have a good night.
All right.